Yo, what's going on? This is Kirk here with another episode of the Pal Down Podcast, episode 4. And I'm lucky here to have tonight a longtime contributor. I shouldn't say a long time, but he's basically everywhere here at the Heavy Hockey Network. I'm happy to have Dash in the Park as a contributing guest here tonight. Dash, what's going on, bud?
Resident mouthpiece. I think that's what you were trying to say.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Resident mouthpiece. Yeah, I'm doing good, buddy. It's exciting to be on here. You know, I'm going to have to start by giving you a hard time and name your podcast and get the naming rights to the podcast, and don't get invited on till episode 4. So I'm not going to say my feelings are hurt, but maybe my feelings are hurt. Pleasure to be here, my friend.
The scheduling conflicts, you know how it is. You're a busy guy.
Yeah.
I had to bribe you literally to get on here. So,
what do you like, the NHL? You just hit like a randomizer button, and whatever you get. And
that's right. It's like Tankathon.
The Oilers only play the Flames 3 times, and maybe you get Dash on the 4th episode. Whatever.
That's right.
Happy to be here, buddy.
Right on, man. Right on. It's been a while. I didn't record another podcast before here, so it's been nearly 3 months since I've done one of these here. So at least on here. So, as if you're living under a rock or whatever, the NHL season has kicked off already. I was going to do goalie tandem rankings here, but in the next podcast, I'm going to do that. I don't even think I'm going to rank it because the parity there is just so razor thin. Unless if you're like Arizona, Montreal, bottom feeders, whatever. Even the bottom feeders have damn good goaltending as far as I'm concerned. Jake Allen,
have to talk to NHL professional scouts to really get it truly sorted out, man. And just
exactly.
The middle class goalie in the NHL is very similar.
Yeah, the elites and then the working class, I guess you could say. But tonight I wanted to talk about homegrown goaltending, specifically with the Oilers. It's been forever that we've had a goaltender through the rankings come up and actually play decent games, or a handful of games, I should say. And that happened last year with Stuart Skinner. He came up in relief when Mike Smith was injured. Went 6-6. And I think he had a .914 save percentage, if I'm not mistaken. I think his goals against were about .260, which is damn good for his first lengthy stint in the AHL. I think he even had one shutout there against San Jose, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways,
he did get a shutout. Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So
I forgot about that one. Well, there's only had 2 shutouts last year. I think maybe only 2 or 3.
I think Koski got one, didn't he?
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, there's a game he stole against Anaheim or something like that. I remember, but at any rate, yeah. It's been a long time since the goalie's been able to do something like this, right? I mean, like arguably Dubnyk had his time and really flourished with other organizations, right? After Nashville and Arizona got their respective hands on him. So really, like a homegrown goalie drafted and successfully played in an Oilers uniform really goes back to Grant Fuhr and Andy Moog, doesn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Because after Fuhr left there in 91, or he got traded in 91, oh heck, we had like so many. Valaket got drafted with us. Who else? Delorier. Yeah, Conklin was a college signing, wasn't he? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. So, and then you had, I guess UC Markkinen was drafted. So, I think he was. Anyways, I have to look that up right now. Shit. Because he did play in the 06 finals, and everybody remembers that.
I mean, there was certainly enough goalies that were drafted and never made it and got to the ice for the Oilers. We could probably run through those. But yeah, as far as guys that actually, hit the ice and played a few games, and, maybe Delorier is one of those guys. I know, like did we not We drafted Tyler Buns.
Yep. Played one game against the Kings.
Olivier Waugh.
Never played a game. Who else there?
UC Markkinen.
Shane Sterrett was a college signing, and he never got past Bakersfield.
Mike Morrison, Dylan Wells, yeah.
I think he's in the ECHL right now. So with Carolina, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, that's it's a lot of swing and misses for the Edmonton Oilers organization, and I mean, that argument is there. Is it a trend? Is it were they just that unlucky that long? Are goalies that voodoo that they're just that hard to predict, or was our scouting stuff poor for so long that we just weren't finding the right targets?
I was going to say it's kind of half and half. You kind of have to get lucky, and you have to have good scouting in place there too. And I think ever since Peter Chiarelli, excuse me, Peter Chiarelli there, I think that was the only good thing that he did for the club was he drafted well, or decently, I should say. He started that
trend. Yeah.
And
we nailed them all. I just looked at the list. The only one we missed was Andrew Werner, who we drafted in the second round of 91 and went to go play in Germany and Austria.
Wow. Yeah, no, and the last swing and a miss, unfortunately, went back to Russia here in Ilya Konovalov, and I liked
Konovalov.
I liked him too, man. Like I watched some of his KHL games there when he was playing with Torpedo with Locomotive there, and I thought he was a poor man's Carey Price. He could have if he just stuck with it, I guess.
Different body type. Konovalov was 5'11" or 6 foot, somewhere in that range, maybe not even 6 foot. So not many goalies in the NHL have been successful in the last 20 years under 6 feet. There's only so many UC Soroses and guys like that can. Yeah, exactly. And I'd say those might be the only two. Maybe there's one more in the last 10, 20 years, right? There was the trend where they all went monster for a little while. And
there's no more Freddie Brathwaites and Pokey Reddicks. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no kidding.
But with Stuart Skinner being the first goalie for us in a long, long time to have made it, I decided, and we've conversed here quite thoroughly here in the last little bit about homegrown goalies going through the ranks of every team out there. And last year, Colorado got their goaltender via trade in Darcy Kemper. And he was the first goalie since 2007, I guess you could say, with Jaguar. JS Jaguar. So it's 15 years. 15 years? Yeah, 15 years. Because you can go through the list, and it's pretty significant there.
Every dynasty or almost dynasty we've had since, geez, man, maybe the Oilers. Really, you've had homegrown goalies. There's either, and by homegrown, not necessarily drafted, but developed, right? I mean, I think that's the key word. There's guys that were drafted by a team and then traded and then brought in the AHL and eventually made that club in the NHL and, developed by that team. But yeah, man, as we did our research there and went back through the list, and, Kemper was one thing last year, and it was a bit of an anomaly because it was, like you'd said, 13, 14 years since it had happened since Jaguar. Jaguar and Habby Boolin did it in 05. Hasek and Waugh did it 02 and 01. Balfour in 99. Waugh 96. Barrasso 91. Ranford 90. And that's 9-10 goalies in the last 45 years.
That's crazy. It really is, man.
How many times do you think, we'll just get a goalie at the deadline, or we'll go and trade and try and solidify our goaltending? 10 times in 45 years, bro. Less than once a decade.
I remember
a decade, a goalie gets brought in by a club and then they win a cup.
Well, you take a look at last year there too. Minnesota tried striking out or hitting goal there with Fleury. That didn't go too well. And if if memory serves me correct, Ryan Miller was St. Louis. Even Brodeur was St. Louis. Oh heck, I can't even remember for that. But swings and misses.
Like you're talking about guys that were brought in to solidify a team and then
the deadline type of deal.
Not get to the Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
that kind of much.
Thing. Yeah, just trade deadline acquisitions and swings and misses, I guess you could call it.
San Jose brought in Niemi for a good chunk of those years after he was in Chicago, and
yes, sir,
that didn't work out for them. Geez, I mean, the Flyers made it to the Cup final in 10. They probably had 13 goalies play on their team that year, knowing them.
And Michael Leighton was the last man standing.
Who? Pardon? Excuse you. Like
exactly who?
They had a revolving door in Philly. Is there a franchise that's harder on their goaltenders?
Oh man, brutal.
But maybe the Senators in 07 or
yeah.
I don't know. There's been their share of goalies that get picked up, and that's just a Stanley Cup final. How many of them carried a team to a conference final and then lost or what have you? So yeah, it's just like you said, man, right at the top. Skinner gets that chance to be that for the Edmonton Oilers, and the kid he's followed a trajectory his entire time, right? Like there's naysayers, but there always is. I got a good personal friend who used to watch him. He still has season ticket. He just sent me a picture of Bedard the other day, but he still has season ticket holders to the Pats in Regina, and watched him play in Lethbridge for years. And my dad had season tickets for the Rockets for decades in Kelowna, and watched his fair share of Memorial Cups and Memorial Cup goalies go through there. And, he knew an NHL goalie when he saw him, right? Like here he is watching the Rockets for 20 years and Hall of Fame defensemen going through there, like Duncan Keith and all these guys that were just absolutely studs in Kelowna. They had a defense factory for a while, but yet, you look back at their goalies and it was, I don't even know what his first name was, Kelly Gard or somebody like that, right? Like they just always seem to have somebody just good enough. And so he had a good eye for that, I think. And he used to tell me, Skinner's just good enough. Like he's just good enough. He's such a big kid and he just blocks a lot of net. And then my friend in Regina would say, he can't move laterally. He just, once you get him moving back and forth there, he's doomed. And, and there's something to it, right? And not that Lethbridge had the greatest teams in those years. Like I understand he played from, what was it, like 2013 to 18? Played like 6 years or 5, or no, you can't play 6 years, 5 years in the WHL.
Yep.
But you go back and look, and right, like to have, save percentages right around 900, always goals against average that bounced around 3, 4. It wasn't until he was really traded to the Swift Current Broncos in for the 2018 run that he really looked elite in the WHL, or looked like a goalie that, oh wow, this is somebody that really could potentially, get drafted high in the entry draft here. So I think when he became available in 2017, I remember those drafts fairly well. And I remember him kind of shooting up the board that year. And then he comes out of that season with a 914 and I don't know, sub 3 goals against average. Maybe it was 2.5 or something like that. But, and obviously that Swift Current team was good and had a better defense in front of them. I'm pretty sure they were Memorial Cup contenders that year. And there they went. So, off to the AHL, where I'm not sure he was fantastic, to be honest. He played a couple in Bakersfield. He was down in the E, even in the East Coast League. He's a 900 goalie. 2 full seasons, sub 900, 88, 89%. It wasn't really until he I don't know, what do you say, like hit 2019, 20 years old, where he really started to kind of turn. But then, by the time he got a little bit of a taste of Bakersfield as a starting goalie in 2021, started to look better, started to look more comfortable. And all of a sudden in in the year 2021, he puts up the best stats of his career. And he kind of hasn't looked back. So what happened there?
I was going to jump in here and say it was that loan and his debut against Ottawa there in the 2021 series or season there, and just he was shaky as hell. I remember it. And
then in 5 goals.
Yeah, 7-5 they won, but he was shaky as hell. And basically, Shorts just gave him his homework. He said, "Hey, you got to work on this, this, and this." Basically everything. It was the whole smorgasbord. And then after that,
edge work, lateral movements, and he's got a penchant for putting on weight. So I think, Skinner's done pretty good at keeping himself limber for his size. Like, he's a giant, man. He's
6'4",
listed at 6'4", but like, I don't know, he looks bigger than that. It's
yeah.
Goalies who equipment makes him look bigger, right?
Yeah, he kind of looks like Vasilevsky there with his chest protector there. It's quite out there, that's for sure. But yeah, like I said, there he conversed there with Shorts. Basically, just told him, say, "Hey, you got to work on all this, and strap on your boots and carry your lunch pail to work every day in Bakersfield." And it just clicked for him. And I remember even Lowtide on his show there one day there, he was saying, "I'm kind of worried about Skinner. You could just tell." Something just isn't there. He has all the tools, but it just isn't there yet. Mm. And lo and behold, it just all of a sudden it clicked for him there, and he took off like a jet engine, and basically stole the net away from Starrett, and was there ever since. And then he went on that one run there. I think it was during the pandemic year, and they lucked out. And they won their division championship, I guess you could call it.
Right.
And he was an integral part of that run. So you could tell that he was moving up. He was getting better. One thing I wanted to ask you, you've got more of a career than I ever did. I can tell you that much. I only played a couple of years of minors. So, and you played defense throughout your career. If I'm not mistaken, you played defense.
I played a little bit of both, actually. I was a forward when I was younger. In junior, I played forward, but I also played defense on the power play because I didn't have the best hands, but I could boom a shot.
Well, I was going to ask you, being a defenseman and whatnot here as of late here when you're playing rec league.
Yeah, last 15 years I played D.
I was just going to ask you, do you converse with your goaltender? You tell him, "Hey, what do you want me to do?" type of deal. Is there communication back and forth? Like, just tell him, what do you want?
Absolutely. Even at our level, for sure, man. I'm in my mid-40s, and our other goalies in our mid-40s as well that we're playing with right now. And I was new to this team this year, and honestly, the first thing I did is sat down with them and talked about. You got to know the basics. You'll learn the rest on the fly, right? Like, the more you play with a person, you start to learn their tendencies, and then you just get to know. But in order for things to go anywhere close to successful in the first time you're playing, top pairing defense minutes on a hockey team of any kind, and you make fun of whoever you want for playing rec league, but you still follow through with the sport and you still play. And ultimately, we talk about. Do you want me to clear lanes for the first shot, or do you want me to get in the lane? Do you want me to try and block shots and push out? Do you want me to keep guys beside the crease? If you want me to push a guy to one side or the other, which side do you prefer? After the shot, do you prefer to cover the puck? Do you like to Do you like to dish off? Big one is obviously puck retrievals, right? Like, what's your stick handling like? Do you want me to come all the way back to retrieve? Do you want to just stop it behind the net? Do you want me to go and get it behind the net? Do you want me to stop at the hash marks and give me a pass? Like, all those things are options. And after you play a few games, you get to figure that out. But there has to be a communication, because without the communication, you don't know. And if you don't know, then you can't trust your goalie. And if your goalie can't trust the defenseman, what happens conversely is, one or the other will cheat. And what that means is, if I don't trust that my goalie is going to make the save, I'm going to be more aggressive trying to stop a cross ice pass, because I know if that thing goes backdoor, it's in. Whereas if I know my goalie can go side to side, well, I can back off and try to plug a lane and stop the pass instead of taking the man. Or you can start to, and then conversely, if your goalie is hugging the post and he doesn't trust the defenseman on the back is going to cover the guy on the back door, he might just move 2 seconds early and give up that near post. And that's all a guy needs, right? Is that a bit of space to capitalize on a mistake. So, yeah, good question. Yeah, I think it's crucially important at every level of hockey for defensemen and goalies to be talking, and then you figure out those trends and work from there.
Right on, man. Yeah, I played 3 years and I quit when I was 13. So, and that was way back. I think it was 1990 when I quit. So, I remember it was pretty much free flowing, like for minor hockey there and whatnot. But still, there had to be communication between everybody. Like, yeah, everybody had to be on the same page as far as I can remember. But I just, from what I remember there, you have to be on the ball, because if you're not on the ball, you're out to lunch, and then before you know it, everybody's hating your guts. You're pretty much a pylon sitting there. But anyways.
Oh, yeah.
The Oilers had their first game here last night, and I wanted to ask you what your take was on Jack Campbell. I know he had happy feet there right in the beginning, but what's your take there? What do you think of Campbell there? And do you think he has the chops to go far with this club?
It's early to answer the back half of that question. The prior question, what do I think of him? How did he do last night? It was interesting. He certainly did have happy feet. I didn't think he looked great in the entire, maybe almost first period. That said, which Oiler did? It wasn't a good start for Nurse. I think the Kulak-Berry pairing was good, but there was chaos in the game, right? Even to the point where Nurse takes that penalty in the last seconds of the first period. Why are you down behind the goal line anyways, Nurse? Like, to me, he was there to prove a point and send a message, right? Like, I made a joke on Twitter today that in other news, Darnell Nurse pays $5,000 for, getting his team to wake the F up. Because really, It wasn't until that point that they went, oh, okay, let's go, right? They killed off Doc's penalty at the start of the second period, and I just kind of got better and better and better. The pace of the game really picked up, I'd say about halfway point. You could really start to see the back and forth. So I don't blame Campbell on that first goal anyways. But he should have had JT Miller's shot over his shoulder. I think that was a really good shot, and it's hard to take anything away from JT Miller, especially in a contract year. But that said, I think that was almost the slap in the face that Soup needed, because from that point on, I thought he really settled in. And I think as a result of him settling in, the team settled in around him. I said to my wife at one point in time in the game, like, what's going on here? Why isn't the goalie yelling at the defenseman and berating them? Right? Like, what would Smith have said to Dylan Holloway after that first goal?
God,
maybe nothing. Maybe something.
Be 6 million ways to die from him. So,
he's going to McGlare, right? So, I think all that helps. So, I thought it was a good start. We're 1 out of 82, 81, one down, 81 to go. But good for him. really, like you were on the prediction show on Oilers Live with me this past Tuesday, and you heard me say that Stuart Skinner in my, my Oilers stretch prediction that Stuart Skinner plays more games than Campbell this year, and it might be an injury that causes that, maybe not, right? Like if Woody's going to give him 6 games and 4 games in the first 10, and Skinner's playing better, I wouldn't doubt after the 20 game mark if it's 10 games each, right? And then at that point in time, win the net.
Yeah.
Win the net, Matt. So, I think they can push each other, which is good for both of them. But if Campbell replicates anything that he did last year before the All-Star break, and then before he got, he struggled with an injury and then got COVID after he healed from his injury, and what did he have? Plus 950 save percentage at the All-Star, like 953 or something.
It was insane.
Like
yeah. It was in the stratosphere. Yep.
Absolutely another stratosphere. Like Toronto's got a similar team to Edmonton. But what I liked about the Campbell signing in particular was that I don't remember who said it. I want to say it was somebody, a genius like Bruce McCurdy, that broke down some of the save percentages. It was Woodley. You know what? It was Woodley that broke down all the save percentages based on when they were seeing shots and how often, and kind of almost created a stat. And who knows, maybe he got it from Valaket or something, right? I don't know whether Woodley was tracking it or Valaket just tells Woodley everything he needs to know. But ultimately, it was a stat that had stated Campbell had one of the highest save percentages in the entire NHL after not seeing a shot for 5 minutes. So what's important about that, I thought, was, okay, well, Toronto doesn't even dump and chase. Like, they're so freaking tied up in puck possession, and right. And when you can do that and you have the skill like Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and Willie Nylander wheeling around the ice with Morgan Riley, like, you can have possession in the other end for minutes sometimes, right? Or you get a couple power plays back to back, and
there you go.
I'm sure Soup might have not. Well, fast forward, what is the Edmonton Oilers' biggest problem? It's our consistency, man. Like, we can't get good starts. And then, all of last year, biggest roller coaster season we've ever seen. Can't get a good start. Maybe we play the second period, then we come back in the third, and we wouldn't get a shot for 9 minutes. And then the other team wouldn't get a shot for 7 minutes. Maybe that suits the Oilers incredibly well. If Soup's got one of those, abilities to stay focused when he's cold or whatever that is, then that's kind of perfect for this team.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. And that's what I said on the show there the other night. Just as long as they stay consistent, the both of them, like even Stewart, like he came in last year, and I had high hopes for the kid, and everybody was screaming for him in February when everything was just going to shit. Yeah. So, but you know what? I trust him. Actually, I trust both of them, to tell you the truth. After seeing what Campbell, in his interviews and whatnot, he's just, the guy's focused. Like, he wants to win just like anybody else. And I think you said he's like the Ned Flanders in the NHL. I don't even think he'd hurt a fly out on the ice. Just so mild-mannered.
The biggest hit for the Oilers in Game 1.
I was just going to get to that there. Yeah, he just charged there. It hit that kid there. That kid was no French fry there, or small fry there either. Like, he walloped them there, and that the crowd just, you could see everybody just jump right up and got into it.
Sure. There might have been an element to the Canuck not wanting to skate through Campbell to draw or to get a penalty or something, but it looked awesome.
Yeah,
made for a good gif, that's for sure.
No doubt. So, in final here, we're going to close out. I know everybody's going to probably roll their eyes about predictions and whatnot, but in the Pacific, specifically, I wanted to talk to you about. You take a look at all the teams. You take a look at Calgary, what they have. I mean, I know you'll love to beat that Calgary drum because.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for bringing it up. Jeez, I make one prediction and now I got to stand by it. I tell you.
Yeah. But I was going to say, Calgary and Edmonton are pretty much set. You take a look at the rest of the division, and what do you think who's gonna fill in the other spots come April? Who do you figure? Because it's all a disarray with Vegas. They're cap strapped to hell, worse than us, worse than us, and
worse than the league.
Yeah, pretty much.
Giveaway patch already, man. Too. Yeah, for sure.
But I was going to ask you, like who do you think? Do you think it's going to be LA again? Do you think Quick has one more kick at the can there into the playoffs, or do you think it's even Anaheim? Do you think Gibson finally wakes up and stays injury free for the season? What's your take? What's your take on the rest of the teams?
I don't think it's gonna be the Ducks. Geez, they had a good game one, and Gibson's been on a decline for a couple of years now. Gibson's not the Gibson of old, in my opinion. You know, you look up the way the Pacific Division lines up, and I don't see it ending any differently than it did last year. I think that seeing the Flames, oh God, it pains me to say this, and I hate that you guys keep making me do this, but I see the Flames at the top of the division again. I like Sutter's had another year with that team. They added a top 10 to 15 defenseman in the entire NHL to an already good top four. Like, they've got the best top six, I think, potentially in the NHL and definitely in the Western Conference. And they've got one of the steadiest goalies in the NHL, arguably a top 5 goalie in the NHL. He was third in the NHL in goals against average last year, third in the NHL in save percentage, and first in the NHL in shutouts. And you've got Sutter and you've got Uyghur added to an already strong decor. I think that those contracts are going to hurt the Flames in the future, but they're not going to hurt them this year. Right? Like, I know Huberdeau is only 8 or 10 months older than Gaudreau, but you know, that team got older. They got more mature as a result of getting older. And just because they got older, nobody's past their prime that isn't named Milan Lucic. But ultimately, Lucic might help them in certain ways too. So I don't know. I think that the Flames will have better off-ice habits. They'll have better on-ice habits. They'll have better dedication to team. They'll have a better buy-in. And as a result, they should be as good of a team or better. The Oilers proved again last night in their first game of the year that they can't start. They can't start, man. What was it, 65 games last year that they had poor starts? And here we go. They've got a defense core that's modeled around 3 or 4 guys that are under the age of 25. Right? I'm not saying that the Oilers don't have the skill to get to the playoffs. I'm not saying they don't have the skill to win the whole damn thing. I predicted they would on Tuesday on our preview show. I think the Oilers have the top end talent to absolutely roast the Flames, but they're good, man. And so I think, you know, they're there for sure. The Oilers are right behind them, and the Kings still come in third. I think Quick's got enough. Fiala adds a big boost to that top 9. He'll be a top 6. They've got 2 of the best two-way centers in the NHL. Doughty will be healthier. Arvidsson will be back. I think, you know, McClellan's a good coach. He's good enough to get you to the first round. And that's what he did in San Jose and Edmonton. And, you know, that's all he's got to do for me to answer your question. I know you want the Canucks in there, and I know Demko deserves to have the respect to be able to carry a team into the playoffs. Maybe it's my Oilers homerism. I just can't do it with the Canucks, although I just picked the Flames to win the division. So I think I'm being pretty fair with myself. And I think my biggest part of it is that for one of the other teams in the Pacific to make it, they got to push somebody out in the Central. And I'm just not sure that the Predators or the Stars are ready to go away.
What about Winnipeg with Hellebuck there too, you know?
And maybe they make a push, right? So like that's, you know, that's the Canucks fighting with the Stars, the Predators, and the Blues for a spot. And like, what did the Canucks have last year? 92 points, and they're going to fight against, like, the Jets at 89.
Yeah.
Right. Predators at 97. The Stars at 98. So can the Canucks do a 10-point jump? Maybe. But I certainly don't see the Ducks making a 30-point jump or a 26-point jump. So I think it's the same teams we saw last year. I really do. I think it's going to be the same 8 in the West.
You don't think that Vegas, with a fresh new coach there, and I know Robin Leonard's out for the year, he's toast, and Bressois he proved even last year like he's a backup, and that's
carry
it.
A load. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
but
and good for him. Nothing against Bressois. I love him all.
Oh yeah, and I gotta add in there with the kid there, with Logan Thompson from Calgary. Like he came in there last year, like right at the end, and basically stole the job from Bressois. So I think he's a guy to keep your eye on for sure. And they've got Eichel now there too. Their forward group is unbelievable, and I think their defense is pretty strong. But the huge question is in Vegas is in goal. Definitely, that's the big one.
Yeah. It's a big injury-prone team overall, right? You want to look at Eichel. You want to look at Stone. You want to look at anybody. Like, has Marchessault been healthy? Has Riley been healthy over time? Has their defense been healthy? Their goaltending certainly hasn't. So,
yeah.
Now, it feels like a crapshoot that they could keep that team together healthy. So, and I think it all hinges on Eichel. And I think
that's karma. Karma for doing Fleury dirty there in the end. He wanted to stay, so why didn't you give him the option to stay rather than kick him out the door? With the knife in his back there, provided from his agent there and whatnot. So
absolutely.
And just in final there, I don't want to. I'm not banging the Canucks drum there. I'm not a fan of the Canucks. But I am a fan of Demko. I wish he was on our team, to tell you the truth.
That. I like him too. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, but it's going to be interesting to see here, man. Like I said to you there earlier this afternoon on the phone there, like the parity in this league, it's unbelievably wafer thin. Like you sneeze and you're out 10 points and your season's done pretty much. So,
yeah, no doubt about it, man.
Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming up for the name for my podcast. Now I was trying to brew up a name here for this little show with her. I had a humongous brain fart, so I had to reach out and ask you. So kudos.
I gave you about 50 options, so at least you took one of them.
The check is in the mail. We had a
few good ones in there until we realized that there was other people in the world that also start podcasts, but so a few of them were taken. But this one suits it. I like it. And, man, I love chatting hockey with you. You're probably my favorite guy to podcast with on heavy hockey because you're such a confidence boost for me. Even when I've got Dursa and Hubert giving me dirty looks all the time, I can still make it. So I appreciate it.
Well, you got to give a shout out to Dursa there too, because he knows what buttons to push. That's for sure.
You give all the shout outs to Dursa you want.
And I got to give the shout out to World Hockey Report there, Cody Jansen and all the boys there. Welcome aboard. I'm super stoked for the future, man. There's going to be more good things coming down the pipe. And when are you and Durs, speaking of which, what are you guys firing up straight off the pipe again?
We've tossed it a deer around about 2 or 3 straight weeks, and I don't know, life just keeps happening, and something will, he had a bump and I had a bump and we didn't quite get there, but we'll probably come together on some large issue that happens here in the next few weeks and completely disagree and want to fight like cats and dogs about it. So I'm sure that'll be the spawn. That's how season 1 started, when we started screaming at each other about Duncan Keith, and 54 episodes later, we were still Alan Peg Bundy. It's a good time with that guy. He doesn't fight back very much, so he's a good guy to battle with.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So next few weeks we'll fire it up. I'm having a good time at Heavy Hockey. I love doing this with you. I got an episode of 99 Forever coming up with Eric Friesen. Josh and I are working on something new. I know we gave you guys a peek of the pilot episode there the other night, and little bit of a quick hitter that we got coming out. So there's lots of good things coming. Like you said, the growth and World Hockey Report coming on. Humbled to have CJ on board, and as we continue to grow and legitimize this hockey network, man, it's been fun to grow. And you and I are, no matter how long this goes, we're two of the OGs.
I still feel like I'm a rookie some days there, compared to you guys, even with Lotzi and Spencer Pomodi and Friesen. Friesen actually was the first guy that got me through the door here. And I think it was like 2019 or 20 there. It was right before the pandemic. He's like, "Hey man, you want to come on to my podcast?" I was like, "Sure, I guess." I've never done it before. And
yeah.
And then you guys there too, like when Hebert, extended the invitation there last January, he's like, "Hey, you want to come right?" And I was like, "Okay." And I've done a few podcasts, but I was nervous as hell, talking to you guys, because you guys are well established and whatnot. So yeah, man, no, it's been a blast. It's definitely been a blast here in the last 9 months for sure. Anyways, I'm going to let everybody go. Be sure to check out Heavy Hockey Net on Twitter. And you can dash your socials.
At Dash in the Park on Twitter, Dash in the Park on Facebook, and that's about all I'm rolling with. I have an Instagram account, but I keep forgetting to go and look at it. So everything we're doing at Heavy Hockey is primarily on Twitter, but I would push people to our YouTube page and subscribe to Heavy Hockey on our YouTube page. It sucks asking. We really hate it, but it means a lot. Getting those subscribers up literally means that we can do more with what we want to do. And the more subscribers you get, the more options YouTube opens up for you. So it's important. And anything you need to remember at the end of this, it's heavyhockey.com, because you can find everything there. All the articles, all the podcasts, and everything is there. And buddy, love doing this with you. I really do. Likewise, man. Until next time, it's the Pal Down Podcast with Kirk Morris. Have a good one. And episode 5 will be here before you know it. Take care, everybody. Good night.